Hello everyone, it's been a very long time. I'm Josh from the Super Lintendo channel and welcome to this video. As the title suggests, yes, we're going to be talking about retro video game stores. So I'm going to go over some points of why you should avoid these stores if they happen to do this. Now the first point that I want to make across is how they price their items. Now every video game store is going to have their different pricing. Every retro video game store is going to have different pricing set upon their pricing on the product. So if it's a high demand item, they might price it a little bit higher than the market price. If you see a store and you look at the prices online versus the prices in store, if it's maybe a few bucks, that's not too bad. But if it's like 10, 20, 30, $40 above the market price, yeah, just completely avoid that store. Don't even do anything, even if they're nice people, even if that, like, it's not a good business to do. I know several stores that do that, at least in my area, or at least in around the general city where I live. I know stores that charge more, and I wouldn't want to go near it. Yes, they have great inventory, but with that great inventory, it's honestly, in my opinion, it's going to sit there, and in my opinion, I feel like it's going to collect dust, and I just don't think it's a viable way to run a business. Now, yes, there are going to be people who are going to buy those stuff, overpricing it, but it also depends. But I will say that if you talk to the owner or you talk to the person that's in charge there and get them to lower the price to a more affordable level, then that might be a little bit more worth it. But to do that for everything in the store, I would just avoid it completely outright. Now, I guess another thing that I want to talk about as well is how they acquired those said items. Now, like how they would acquire it, they would go into their store and sell their stuff. When they come into the store to sell their stuff, they are not going to get the market price. They're probably going to get half that or even less than half of that. So if they're coming in with like stuff like complete in box N64 games or like really rare stuff, you're probably not going to get everything. But if you talk to somebody that knows what they're doing and are fair and honest and they give you a good price, that's not bad. And I also just think it depends like what you want to do out of it, because when you're going to sell your items, you're not going to take the time to go do it yourself unless you're going to hustle and post it online and do everything you can to get that market price. It just depends on how willing you are to do it. Most people, when they want to sell their video games, are going to go to a store and they're not going to get the right price just because, you know, you're doing it out of your convenience and you don't want to go out of your way to sell it yourself. And it can be a lot of work, not going to lie. But when it comes to inventory, just be careful. If they don't offer you anything really relatively close to what you want, I would say avoid it. Because I used to work at a retro video game store, and some of the people that you know that are here on this channel that have subscribed to me know this, or at least they know me from that store. But if they didn't know, some of you do, that there were times where if the person didn't know what they had, we would lowball them on an offer, and I did not like doing that. I wish they would actually get a fair price, but unfortunately, that's just kind of comes with the territory. I don't excuse what at least the owner that I worked with did, and unfortunately, it is what it is. So again, if that's what happened, I would just say avoid that store. So the next thing that I want to talk about is if your store doesn't have any suitable advertising or a sign outside of your store. Now I get it if it's if it's first starting out, if it doesn't have a sign or anything, and they first just started, like they opened up the store maybe like a few months ago or something like that, I can excuse that. But if you're in a situation where you have no store sign outside to know where you are, that's just a bad deal. Like, it's more in line with the ownership, you know, because at the end of the day, a lot of people wouldn't know where the store would be at. I worked at a store where we had no sign for over a year, and it still didn't have a sign by the time it closed. And it's kind of a shame because I'm like, well, if they had a store sign, we would have more customers. We would have more people in the store. I had times where I had nobody in the store because it was just a slow day and it sucked. And that goes to my next thing right here is the pay. If a store doesn't really pay their employees, just avoid it. Like, in a sense of working and shopping there. The store that I worked at didn't really pay very well. It paid just slightly above the minimum. which is not good if you want to make a career out of it, or at least want to continue to working there. Like, there's other avenues to get better payment and to work at a better location. Now, the job wasn't hard or anything like that, but if you happen to know the employees or are an employee of a retro game store, try to find another job, or at least somewhere else to sustain yourself. I mean, especially if you're young, because there's more out there. And if you want to make a career for yourself, don't do it by working at a retro video game store, unless you really want to. I mean, it's just up to you. So I wouldn't do that, especially around my age. Another thing to avoid is if the video game store is only in it for the money. So if the owner only is in it for the money, then and doesn't really care about the games, or like cares that much about the retro gaming community, that's not somebody you should be around and really appreciate. Now, there were a lot of cool things about the store that I did work out, and I think he did somewhat care about the retro gaming community because he did put on a lot of events, or at least some events by the time I left, and there were some good things out there. And the area that I was at, it did thrive a little bit with the community and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. There were some things out there that I appreciated out of it, but if they don't appreciate the retro games or like know anything of it, just avoid it. And speaking of the owner, another thing you should avoid is if the store owner decides to take their inventory from one store and put it in the other store. Now, that's not a bad thing per se, especially if they have extras and stuff like that. You know, if one store didn't have it, take it over to the other store, that's fine. But if you're taking like all the good stuff from one store and taking it to the other store and just, you know, trying to sell it over there, especially the stuff that like collectors are wanting to collect for, that's just a kind of a bad look, because you understand that there were a lot of really cool games there, and the fact that, you know, you're just going to take the inventory and take it somewhere else to sell it over there, it just kind of defeats the purpose of having good inventory. And when you don't have good inventory, you're not going to get sales. If you don't get sales, you can't pay rent. Like when I worked at my store, my former store, he would do that. And there'd be times where no one wanted to buy anything because there wasn't really anything worth buying. And also, this, like, the more expensive stuff they would get in, yeah, it would sit there. But that's because, like, the area that we were serving didn't have a whole ton of money. Not that I'm saying it was poor, it's just people were cheap and not looking to pay the prices that people wanted to pay. And it just depends on who wanted to go there. It's just not a good look for somebody to go out there, you know, and to just take the inventory from your store and put it at his other store. I would avoid something like that, to be honest. Now, when it also comes to inventory, another point that I want to make is if they go to other stores or to physical retail stores, buys stuff, and then sells it at their store. Because I actually know someone that does that, funny enough. I know someone who runs a business, buys up our retro stuff because it's generally a lot cheaper than anywhere else, and then resells it as its store for more expensive. And I really do not like selling stuff to him. And in fact, that we actually kind of go out of our way to not really show it to him or to any of their employees that come in. I don't like showing it for those people. I want to, you know, go to the customers who come here that want to buy it, not to just to resell it, but to appreciate the game that comes in. You know, appreciate the game they're purchased. I just don't like having to do that to resellers because it just, in my opinion, just defeats the purpose of retro gaming. Now, I understand there's going to be a lot of people out there that want to do that. Like, I take advantage of it sometimes too, but I don't try to resell it, you know? At least I want to collect for my stuff, and I only do it if I want to resell it, if I need to make a little bit of cash, but I really don't. Yeah, I definitely know of one store that does that. So if you see a store do that, avoid it. So what do you guys think of the points that I mentioned in this video? Is there anything that surprised you in this list of stuff? Would you actually go and avoid some of these stores? What do you think? Is there any stores in your area like that? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell if you watch more of my future content. If you watch something else, make sure to click the anchor screen right here. That is some of my videos of highlighting some of the retro video game stores up in Fort Worth, so go check that out. Anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. This This is Josh from the Super Lintendo channel signing out.